My name is Sarah Moshman, and I'm a filmmaker. And for as long as I can remember, I have loved using the camera. When I was 16 years old, my parents gave me perhaps the greatest gift of my entire life. It was a Sony Hi8 video camera. It had cutting-edge technology, okay? Like sepia tone, night vision, slow motion. I know. But before Wi-Fi and cell phones and YouTube were ubiquitous, I was making documentaries in high school. And what I realized was that having this camera next to me gave me a courage that I didn't otherwise have. Suddenly I could ask questions of people that maybe I'd be a little bit too nervous to ask otherwise. The camera gave me the courage to be curious. And I could tell even from that age that this was going to be a very powerful tool in my life, and I wanted to make films with impact. So I went to film school, then I moved out to Los Angeles, and I started working as an independent filmmaker. In 2011 is when I really started to realize I wanted to tell stories of women, women's bravery, ordinary women doing extraordinary things. I wanted to find women who were making history, women who were not taking no for an answer, and maybe who had more courage than I did. I wanted to help make their stories larger than life. In January 2015, I got a life-changing email. Most emails, not life-changing. But this one was. This was from a blogger in the UK who was alerting me to the story of 4 women who were about to get in a pink 29-foot ocean rowing boat and row across the entire Pacific Ocean from America to Australia. And they were going to call themselves the Coxless Crew. My first reaction to this was, I'm sorry, human beings row across oceans? That is a thing that people do? I cannot underscore enough how little I knew going into my very first conversation with Laura Penhall and Natalia Cohen, 2 of the rowers on the crew. And I gotta be honest, going into this conversation, I kind of assumed like someone else must be all over this story, right? Like some other filmmaker or distributor, streamer, network, like this must be accounted for. No way is this story like open and available for someone like me. But to my surprise, it was. No one was planning to tell this story. And what I learned from Laura and Natalia in that first conversation is that this was so much bigger than rowing. This was about the power of the human spirit. So by the end of my first conversation with them, I was all in. Even though I had no idea how I was going to pull this off logistically, how I would fund it, and if they would make it, didn't matter. I thought if they have the courage to row across an ocean, I can make a movie about it. And even though I didn't know anything about rowing, I knew how to tell a story. And in that moment, that's all that mattered. April 20th, 2015, I was standing on the dock at the Presidio Yacht Club in San Francisco, California, as I watched Laura, Natalia, Emma, and Izzy row under the twinkling lights of the Golden Gate Bridge. They set off rowing 24 hours a day, 2 hours on, 2 hours off for what they thought would be a 6-month journey. This was to be a 3-stage row from San Francisco to Hawaii, Hawaii to Samoa, and Samoa to Australia, over 8,000 miles. Now, I know what you're thinking, and the answer is no, I did not go with them. I couldn't even if I wanted to, okay? But no, seriously, they were doing this unsupported, so that means no camera boat, no follow boat. They were going to be totally isolated at sea. So what does that mean for me? That means for me as the filmmaker, I need to empower them with cameras and hard drives and microphones so that they could tell their own story out at sea, and I was going to meet them on land along the way. They faced unimaginable challenges while they were at sea. They rode in 4-story waves. They rode through tropical storms. They had their desalinator broke at one point, so they had to pump their own water. They rode through the actual doldrums of the ocean. They ran out of food at one point, but they would be the first ones to tell you that this was more of a feat of endurance than a feat of strength. They rode through extreme heat and calloused hands, you name it, they faced it. But they also witnessed unimaginable beauty while at sea. They rode through 360-degree sunrises and sunsets, uninhibited by people and buildings and pollution. They got to row along wildlife like mahi-mahi and turtles and whales right next to the boat. Life was actually quite beautifully simple. It was eat, sleep, row, repeat. And they spoke about how free they felt out there. Free from societal norms, free from expectation, free from the busyness of day-to-day life and technology. They always said that this was 90% mental. So is filmmaking. You know, filmmaking and entrepreneurship truly go hand in hand. So even though I was dry and on land, I was out there pitching this story to anyone who would listen, right? I'm talking to production companies and distributors, funders, saying, "Isn't this amazing?" And people would say, "Wow, Sarah, what a great story. Let me know when they make it." No one wanted to take the risk. But I believed so deeply in this story, so I did everything I had to do. I raised the money through crowdfunding, through applying to countless grants, investors, private donors, anything, because I continued to think about they were really out there rowing the Pacific, so what do I have to complain about? I'll never forget what it felt like. Off the coast of Oahu, I was standing on a boat filming, and all of a sudden I see this tiny pink dot on the horizon emerge in my lens. It was Doris, their boat. I couldn't believe that they were really out there rowing 24 hours a day, stroke by stroke, to achieve this insane goal. And every time I wanted to complain about how hard my role was, I just thought about them out there and I would stop. I needed a title for the film. I needed a way to encapsulate the journeys that we all take in our lives, the ones that are overwhelming, daunting, sometimes scary. And I thought about a quote that my dad shared with me around that time when I was homesick in college and having a rough time finding my way. And my dad shared with me, "One cannot discover new lands without losing sight of the shore." And sure enough, I was looking on the Coxless Crew's website where they would share their daily blogs, and there it was, the very same quote. So I decided to call the film Losing Sight of Shore. And the tagline of the film is, "Everyone has a Pacific to cross." So they may have been out there crossing the literal Pacific, but I was crossing a Pacific of my own in making the film. And I thought maybe, just maybe, other people could be inspired by them crossing their own Pacific someday. January 16th, 2016 will forever be cemented in my memory as the day that I learned that absolutely anything is possible. It was day 257 at sea. For those keeping track, that's 9 months instead of 6. Over 8,500 miles rowed. I was standing on the dock in the marina in Cairns, Australia, with 9 cameras rolling overhead, including a helicopter up above, which sent a bolt of adrenaline through my veins as we were filming this story. And I watched my sisters, my friends, my heroes coming into land and make history. When they took that first step off that boat, they set 2 world records. They are the first team of 4 and the first team of women to ever row across the entire Pacific Ocean unsupported. They made it. Still blows my mind. Then came the incredibly daunting task of editing the film together. So how do you take a 9-month journey and turn it into 92 minutes of a movie? I had hundreds of hours of footage to sift through. And in October 2016, I finished Losing Sight of Shore. And I was really proud. But I thought, was anyone going to want to watch this? Remember, I don't have a production company on board or a fancy executive producer or a big budget. And I had just gotten rejected from the Sundance Film Festival. And I thought, is this all going to be worth it? And then it happened. Another life-changing email. I get these from time to time. This time it was from my sales agent for the film. And there it was. We made a deal with Netflix. So I was able to pay back my investors with that money. I was able to pay myself finally. And most importantly, the world would hear their story. May 1st, 2017, Losing Sight of Shore premiered on Netflix worldwide in 190 countries, subtitled in 25 languages. The beautiful reactions to the film started pouring in the weeks and months and years that followed. We heard about a young man who was an explorer who happened to download Losing Sight of Shore to watch it while climbing Mount Everest. We heard about people sharing the film with a dying parent in the hospital to give them strength. We heard about other crews of rowers who decided to set off on their own journey across the English Channel and the Atlantic. I did it. I crossed my Pacific. And finally, their story was larger than life. April 20th, 2025, I reunited with Laura and Natalia at the Presidio Yacht Club under the Golden Gate Bridge 10 years after they had left. We clinked our champagne glasses and reflected on what the last decade had brought all of us. I am so proud of what this became, and I learned a good story wins. You might not feel totally ready or qualified to take on a huge challenge, but you must get started, and you must keep going. Make the movie, take the trip, write the book. You never know what's waiting for you on the other side if you simply have the courage to lose sight of the shore. Thank you.